look at this agenda.
We can make this part of the protocol.
We got enough, formality. All right. Okay, we'll call the work session to order. All right, Litter Control Committee. Mr. Hildebrand.
Yeah, that means you.
You need to keep working? I can stand over here. You sure? Okay. Hey, man, thing shocked me. What's wrong with you? I provided a memo, for this work session and I'm here in front of you now because this issue is a bit time sensitive. There's some dates coming up that, we have to meet if we're gonna continue to seek grants from DEQ. So I thought this would be a good time to get in front of you guys and, maybe have a conversation about the committee, the litter control committee, and, to give you an idea of kind of where we are and where we may wanna go or otherwise. As you can see, I think from my memo, we have 2 vacancies on the committee and there's only 5 appointed members to begin with. We've had those vacancies for more than a year. I went back and looked at the meeting minutes. And there's only been 3 committee members present at meetings since June of 2014. And even further back than then, I can't find where we had more than 3 members attend. And a lot of times, it looks like, especially in this calendar year, the meetings, when they have them, are only attended by the coordinator and 1 member. So it appears that either, as my memo suggested, we might want to look at changing the bylaws, changing the structure of the committee, or if you folks may have an idea of some folks that would like to volunteer for the committee to get it back to full strength. And in addition to that, Ron Rose, who's the coordinator, has taken a new job and he's not going to be able to continue in that role beyond this term, which is June 30. So if we're going to continue to have a coordinator, we're going to need to do an advertisement and see if we can't recruit somebody to fill that role.
How much is the grant for,
Last year the grant was a little over $9,000, and then the committee didn't spend all their money the previous fiscal year, so that's deducted. Long story short, the grant ended up being about $8,800.
now does the committee, they're the ones that organize the hazardous waste pickup and
That's
the,
it.
and the, electronics pickups?
That it's a shared endeavor. Both those activities. The hazardous waste day is funded through the landfill fund, and it's manned by both the litter committee and staff from the landfill. The committee does do majority of the advertisement and the legwork leading up to those events, along with some other things they do throughout the year, but both of those events are shared. Now, I will say that any costs that are incurred on e-recycling is paid through the grant, but that's pretty minimal, because the committee had done a good job of finding a vendor who would actually take that material without cost to the county. So there's some advertisement costs and some other things that's paid for out of the grant money.
First question I had when I saw this, Kurt, was you list 3 purposes or goals or whatever, for the educating citizens, promote enhanced awareness for the hazard materials, and increase participation. And I guess I was wondering, is there a better or equally efficient way of doing it other than through the committee, or is the committee really the only way to get at those three goals or purposes, I guess, as you call them here? I mean, have you thought about, now that you've done it for a while, what are your thoughts on it?
I think the committee can be very effective in those items. One thing I'll say is that wording was taken directly from the bylaws that were developed in 1996, and they haven't been changed as far as I know. And I'm getting off subject a little bit, but the committee has kind of morphed into more than what's stated there. The committee does a lot more with recycling efforts than I think what was being done in 96. But to answer your question, it probably would become more effective if my department probably participated at a higher level on education and that kind of thing than what we do now. But to be honest, we've kind of relied on the committee to do that. They've done a lot of work with the schools, trying to get in on the ground floor, so to speak, with young kids and really talking to them about the importance of recycling and the importance of proper disposal of waste and that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, those are, I don't think that those are goals that we want to abandon. That was the
No, I
reason I
agree.
asked the question. I mean, it's just a question of how's the best way to, to achieve them.
Yeah, I would really like to see the committee rejuvenated. I think it's pretty obvious that the county's appearance has declined over the last 12 months, substantially from what it was before as far as litter.
Certain roads certainly have.
Are horrendous. The other thing is, and I know, still working through this and all, but is there any way we could tie the jail workforce in with this committee possibly somehow and get them to do a lot of the legwork?
And if I could speak to that a little bit, I know that Ron Rose, who's the coordinator, had gotten the workforce to do some roadside cleanup. But that's kind of fallen by the wayside, I think, because Ron hasn't been able to spend as much time recently as he had been. But that is something that they had started doing
Yeah, I know
periodically.
they did it out on Carpenter's Mill Road. Actually, I got a compliment on that the other day that they did a really good job.
Yeah.
Unlike the state contractor, who they said that the guys came through there and if they came across the bottle, they just threw it farther in the woods.
Right.
Bottles are heavy, so you know.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, frankly, some of the worst times is when the once every 6 or 7 years when they bush hog the sides of the roads. The mess they leave after that,
Yeah.
it's more
It's even
visible
worse.
because they've cut the grass line. But that's some of the worst times, at least along the roadways. My goodness.
Does the committee do anything to promote the Adopt a Highway?
They are, that is part of the grant application, and it is part of something that the committee's involved with. However, I will say, looking back at the minutes from their meetings, I haven't seen any mention of anything recently that they've done with Adopt a Highway, but that is part of their task. And I'm sorry.
I don't know, I'm gonna check, I don't know if Virginia Department of Transportation is still doing the Adopt a Highway. I think that program was discontinued.
If it costs any money, they put it off on the jurisdictions.
I
I mean,
think the
we've got,
signs are still
I know
up,
there's two groups
Yeah.
on Route 3 that do it.
and some are still doing that type of work.
Right.
And,
I saw a group out there.
and somebody's picking up the big orange bags that they use. I don't know whether that's the state or.
Right, that's,
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to find some information about other groups that either are or have interest in doing these kind of things. I don't know whether it's, scout groups or other civic groups or using, the residents from Central Virginia Regional Jail
Right.
or whatever.
that's.
But it seems to me that these are worthy task that, and a broader involvement of the community and maybe the county government as well, it would be in order to shine a little bit more attention on it because.
Is the
Well,
existence of a committee, or is the grant dependent upon the existence of a committee?
No, we don't have to have the committee. I looked into that and tried to figure out what other localities are doing. Some have committees, some do not, but most all localities are participating in this grant program.
Even if the county were to assume that, you'd almost need to use, still need to have a coordinator unless we got, you know,
I believe so, because there's just a lot of events that are outside of normal hours and weekends, and, you know, one way that and I can't speak for every locality that participates in the grant but doesn't have a committee, but I get the feeling in talking to a few folks that basically some of these other localities use the grant money just for cleanup. I know that the roadsides get a lot of trash and they need to be cleaned up, but I think effort needs to be made in some kind of way to prevent it from happening in the first place.
Better
What the
off
answer to that is, I can't stand here and say, but,
Do you think you'd get better participation if we went to business hours for the
I think so.
meetings?
I know that's some of the localities that do have committees that have moved to having the meetings at noon or, you know, early afternoon as opposed to, when we meet at 7.
Well, one thing I see, since we have 3 at large coming, or 2 vacancies, of course Christine is coming up, and then the coordinator. Who all is left on the committee?
Mr. Ernst?
Yeah, Gene Ernst and Gene Ernst. I mean, but I was reading through these bylaws. I know it says that it's preferred, if at all possible, to have representatives from all the districts. I actually have 2 or 3 other people from my district that would be interested in serving on the committee.
I think we at one time had it, district by district.
Yeah.
And we
Right.
couldn't, and certain, districts couldn't come up with a volunteer,
Right.
mine being one of them.
Yeah, when we started it, it was one per district, and we had there was a lot of interest, and this actually came from this originally came from the citizens. I mean, some citizens came to the board and wanted to do this, so, you know, things change over time, so.
Yeah. Well, I know that Ann Somerville's term doesn't expire until June 30th of next year.
I was gonna say.
Along
I knew
with
Ann was
Gene
on.
Ernst. So we have the 2 vacancies, and then I know Ms. Bodendorf, expires, and she's had some family issues, so she hasn't been able to attend anyway, so in reality, we have likely 3 spots we need to fill, plus the coordinator. And I know that the committee has, from inside their own world, they've tried to recruit some folks, but with no success, so.
Why, I mean, it seems to me that some kind of hybrid, where you know, maybe you get a couple of these institutional, appointments, and then just have the citizen committee be a 3 to 5 members or whatever from the, you know, so it's more of a, as we can find them and as there's interest.
Well, the Tourism Advisory Committee is an example of a model that I'm not so sure that couldn't apply to this. And that seems to be, I mean, I'm not directly involved with, but from observing at a distance at least, that seems to be working quite well. And
But that's a group with a very, very focused interest.
well, but this group could define their interest
Right.
if they chose to.
They really could.
I mean, I don't know that that's a perfect model, but it's one that we should, you know, think about.
Well, another thing is, a lot of the service organizations, you know, Burton's, I know Lions are pretty well booked with what they're doing, but other
They
organizations
do,
out
part
there.
of the Route 3.
Right, so maybe if we could, you know, Rotary, if we could tap into all the service organizations, we may be able to get some better response, because I have to say, the county we need the recycling, we definitely need the roadside work, because it's an embarrassment for people to turn in off of Route 3 into Orange County. It's just not a good situation, and I've noticed 20 just in the last 2 to 3 weeks has gotten even worse.
Couple things I've misstated, VDOT they've got a full webpage to roadside cleaning, you can still adopt a highway, they pick up waste, trash in the orange bags twice a year. So you have to coincide with when their waste days are. The other part, I think Kurt and I talked about this, that maybe a restructuring where there's some of these institutional representatives. I think one of the challenges that Kurt has had is just sustaining that level of interest, and this may be one of those opportunities where we've got this cross-section between those that are volunteering this and then those that would assume membership on this as part of their regular job. And so I think having 2 representatives from the 2 towns involved would be certainly very key. And I think certainly inviting the sheriff and the VDOT and maybe making this kind of a standing committee, and if there's citizens that are wishing to join this, is that the more the merrier. I think the Tourism Advisory Committee is, I look at the chair, we haven't turned away anybody that yet kind of thing, as long as they had some relationship.
But they've moved the peg. I mean, they've accomplished
Yeah.
things.
So I think this could start with that same genesis.
Interestingly enough, and I don't mean to interrupt, but since the time that I crafted the memo and doing some research on who participates in this grant program, I've found that both towns already participate. They don't have committee, or at least the town of Orange. I spoke to the Public Works Department for the town of Orange. They don't have a committee. They don't necessarily have meetings, but they utilize the grant funds for some cleanup activities and some materials that they use for that. So the reason I bring that up is if we were to, and one of the things I mentioned in the memo was to possibly incorporate the towns. I suppose what would happen in reality is the towns would no longer seek grant funding on their own, but if they became part of the county's organization, that should increase the amount of grant funding that we should get. The grant funding is based on, it's determined by population and road miles. I don't know the exact formula on how that all gets done, but in talking to the town of Orange, I think their grant is like $1,500 as opposed to us getting around 9,000. So I would assume that if the towns were absorbed into the county's operation, then the grant funding should go up by the amount they were previously getting. If that's the way you want to pursue that. When I talked to their public works folks, they weren't necessarily opposed to doing it that way. I haven't had a chance to talk to Gordonsville yet, and I'm sure it would probably warrant some conversation with Brian and the town managers as well. But
one other thing to consider in this is the road crews that come from the regional jail. I think the latest budget that we've seen, that there is funding for those road crews to continue, and they've done, when they come, they do an exceptional job on the roadside pickup. I think that's one of the more challenges that we have, is actually getting litter off the roads. And it really, other than the Adopt a Highway folks, it really is the jail crews that will get out there. I think this grant maybe aspirational to be able to hire people using this grant to go pick up litter on the side of the road. So.
I mean, it sounds to me like the approach we need to take is for, some small group of people, probably you and maybe Brian and a member or two, go work this as a, little committee assignment, for lack of a better characterization, and look at all of these different aspects. Reconfiguring, maybe using the Tourism Advisory Committee as a starting model, evaluate, combining the towns, look at participation with civic organizations. Boy Scout troops are looking for stuff to do. Eagle Scouts are looking for projects. I mean, there's a long list of possibilities, but they need to be examined and discussed.
Does the Adopt a Highway still have the signs up there for the?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
Yeah, I found the form. I could fill one out right now for you.
Yeah.
It's
Mark
still-
Hildenbrand,
it's still a
that's the name
pretty
you
big-
want on there.
But it sounds like that there's an approach available that we need to really, and it's far more than we can deal with in work session like this, so there needs to be some concentrated attention to this if we want to.
Well, whether we keep it as this current committee or not, obviously, we need some process for doing, keeping the roads clean. I mean, I would rather than just looking at the idea of a committee or something, what is the best process to do to keep it? Committee may be involved, and especially the education, if they're getting into the schools and things like that. I think that's educational materials, and I'm sure there's a lot of it available to use to get into the schools and set this as a kind of model for the kids.
Maybe we could even, I know this is far-fetched, but the businesses that supply most of the litter might be interested in, especially if we approach them in the correct manner, that they might be interested in either donating time, effort, or possibly even funds so that people could get paid to go out and recycle their litter possibly.
There's maybe three areas that you might be able to look at. One is the education piece, certainly education, litter education. Another is community service, community-wide service, the electronics recycling, hazardous waste, and then the third piece is roadside litter. If I can't think of another way of doing that. Each one of them has certain ways of going about. And to Mr. White's point, I think if there were two board members that had some particular interest in this to help us as staff to kind of work this and maybe see what kind of net we can cast to restructure it, that might be a good opportunity. Or one board member if they're not two.
Well,
Is that what
if
you
I
said,
may, I
Mr.
was
Wade?
just thinking maybe the appropriate board members would be the ones that serve on the landfill committee. Just
Which
throw
would
that out
be,
there.
Mr. Crozier.
May as well raise your hand there.
I like volunteerism.
I mean,
we haven't done a lot with the landfill recently, and,
we haven't had a need,
maybe
but-
throwing that into the mix,
It's needed. It is absolutely needed.
And I think that's the point, is a little bit more of a comprehensive look at this is in order.
Yeah, we're doing economic development, we're doing tourism, and both of those rely heavily on the appearance of the county and that, we care about it. Yeah.
So we'll rename it the Solid Waste Committee, and then really there's not been any work of the committee since we selected the
Landfill operator.
operator twice or something like that. So,
Oh, the scales. That was a difficult one.
and then what I understand the board's direction is let's kind of rework it and maybe come back with a proposal or some choices.
maybe we need to have a meeting of the Solid Waste Committee and bring Ron Rose in if he can, just to sit and get his insights.
And it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to get Gene Ernst in there.
Okay.
He's very active.
He really is, and,
All right.
Okay,
Okay.
I can make that happen.
But just so we get the right parameters, we've got an education thing, a function, and then maybe something else, but then there's the community-wide service, and then the roadside litter, and then maybe some
And
other.
the education piece would include recycling in that, right? Okay,
All right.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Kurt. Next item.
I always knew this served a purpose.
I got it to stand up, but I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, in my memo before you, this is a follow-up to our public hearing on March 10th, which was for a rather lengthy zoning ordinance amendment, which covered transient lodging, agritourism, private uses, and things of that nature. The board raised some specific concerns and chose to defer to where we are now as this work session. So you can see in my memo, I've advised some additional changes to some of the language based on the comments that I heard and based on conversations with the county attorney. So offering those up for your view, I've opened up any comments or questions or further conversation.
Josh, just a quick question here, and maybe I'm blind as to that, but the definition here between short-term tourist lodging facility and vacation rental, it seems like they're essentially the same thing, except one of them is for 14, one of them is a, where the person is living there, and the other one is, it's a portion of an owner-occupied dwelling as opposed to a non-owner occupied dwelling. Is that the only difference between those two?
No, I think there's one other difference, is you got, one is 4 or fewer guest rooms, and the other one implies only one single-family dwelling.
Yeah, the other thing comes down to how it's used on the property.
I mean, okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The short term is an accessory use, and it's designed to retain whatever character is existing. So if there's a house there with an in-law suite in the back, it doesn't detract from the character of that property as it exists. Whereas the vacation rental is where you just rent the entire property out.
The other difference is the owner in the first case has to be there.
That's their
And
principal
the owner
residence.
does not or is not there in the second case. I think that's the other distinction that I.
So if you had a single family, you don't need anybody there. If you now have 2 units, 3 units, 4 units, then one of them has to be the owner/manager.
Correct.
So that's
That's the intention at least.
if it's just a single unit, you don't need an owner-manager.
Yeah, if it's rented out as an entire property and not piecemeal or by room,
Right, the primary residence can be a portion of that.
I distinguish it like renting a beach house. You're renting the whole house for a set period of time versus renting a room for a certain amount of nights where the owner is living there while you're there. Is that a,
that's a good way to distinguish it.
Does it even, we talk tourist lodging facility, and we say vacation rental. Are these driven to that, or are we just talking about a rooming house?
Yeah, I mean, there were obviously, I mean, if you go through them, there's obviously little differences. It seems like to my eye, it seems like we're splitting hairs, but I'm not sure.
Well, I think we probably are splitting hairs, but one of the reasons for that is a common thing happening in the eastern end of the county, that
A lot of common things happen in these.
the owners are not present, and we're addressing that directly, is what it looks like to me.
Well, that gets to the question I had, is where does this become something other than a, rent by the year? There's a lot of houses that you rent by the year, and what's the distinction here?
The first one, the short-term tourist lodging facility, seems to me to be a much more, a much larger
Commercial?
change than the second. I mean, if I have a house and I rent out the entire house and a single family, perhaps extended family, but somebody comes and rents the whole house, that seems to me to be much less impactful than someone who basically has maybe 4 rooms that they're leasing out to various people.
What is the time criteria for the occupancy tax?
Less than 30 days.
Less than 30 days, okay, all right.
Which Josh and I had a discussion today on this vacation rental. I'm not sure there's a lot of benefit to defining it. Let me explain why. Because if somebody rents their house out, for example, in some of the neighborhoods in the county that I've heard that sort of thing happens, for vacation, it's still a single-family dwelling. And if you rent it for 6 months, nobody asks, obviously they can do it. I don't know that for zoning purposes, it makes a lick of difference if they rent it for 6 months or a week or a day or a year. The only difference is on the taxation side, which would be the occupancy tax. But from a zoning standpoint, there may not be any benefit to creating this definition, because I don't know what we would do with the definition after we create it. If we say you can do it as a right, well, I would say you can do it as of right now in any district, because.
Well, that was sort of my question about.
Kind of where I was trying to get to.
If you rent it for a year, are we making a distinction without a difference?
Right.
It sounded like we are.
And so to me, on the zoning side, anybody can rent their house for a day, a week, a year, in any district, there's nothing we can do about it. If it's under 30 days, we can charge transient occupancy tax, but that's not a zoning issue, that's
No,
a
it's
taxation
separate.
issue.
Separate.
And so, we had this conversation, and my suggestion would be that probably this is a definition in search of a purpose.
One of the things we talked about today was.
I like that.
How would you even issue a zoning permit for these things? I mean, you couldn't, it's not a change in use, it's still a single-family home. How would you get people to come in to issue a zoning permit for something that they're permitted by right to do? So, the taxation issue is another issue, and I'd like the opportunity to get some of the board's thoughts on that. There may be a way to work on some of the taxation issue.
If you were to advertise that all rental properties had to be inspected to come in compliance with the maintenance code and/or the fire code, and I know that seems to be my little pet peeve, but that is how you tie all this together, because it's a life safety issue, and you do get taxed on life safety issues. You can publicize it, that it is county code, that when a property is rented out, that, you have this criteria that you have to go through.
Again, that's not in the zoning. That wouldn't be in.
No, it wouldn't be in the zoning, but I'm just saying this is a different approach that could be used that is probably plugged into the right aspect of it. It also would reduce personal property taxes possibly, or keep them from going up, because you're now getting another revenue fund from people that are running a business and making a profit. And that's my food line, 2 cents worth.
Does anybody have a problem with dropping the vacation rental, given that doesn't seem to be a zoning purpose in this? Anybody have a problem with just dropping that? You, Josh? Does that pose a problem for you?
My only counterpoint is if all the jurisdictions across the country that are struggling with this right now, all of them permit single-family uses, then it all of a sudden should be a moot point. It shouldn't be an issue on how to regulate these if they're already permitted.
I'm not sure I understood the counterpoint.
Yeah, I thought that was the point that Tom was making.
Yeah, it is. I'm just being devil's advocate, though.
But I'm not sure where the devil advocate was pointed.
Well, this is trying to distinguish it. If we're gonna consider all vacation rentals and all transient lodging under 30 days as single-family permitted by right, then we don't even really need a definition for bed and breakfast inn.
No,
If I'm not-
in those circumstances,
If I'm not being dense.
you've got this issue of management, you've got this issue of serving.
Well, in a bed and breakfast inn, or in a situation where you're renting rooms as opposed to the whole dwelling, that's where the difference is. And the rest of these definitions involve renting rooms inside of a facility as opposed to renting the entire dwelling. If you're renting the entire dwelling, it never changes use, it stays a single-family dwelling the whole time. If you rent on these other definitions, you're actually
Changing the use.
you're taking one structure and allowing multiple rooms inside that structure to be rented, so I think that's where the difference.
So that's a zoning difference.
That's a zoning difference, because it's no longer technically single-family dwelling, you're technically using it for multi-occupant purposes.
But you could do the same thing, whether it's a tourist, whether you're looking at a short-term tourist lodging facility or a short-term lodging facility, or even a long-term rooming house where somebody's there for, I mean, the difference being you're getting from a single family to multiple people in that, whether it's short-term or long-term, gets to the point of what kind of tax structure you have.
Exactly, if you think about the old style boarding house, which was very common, not too long ago, the old style boarding house was somebody's home and they rented longer term rooms in that home, that would not be permitted under our zoning ordinance because that would not be single family dwelling. And so if you turned your single family dwelling into a boarding house, now you've got a use change and you'd not comply with our zoning ordinance. But if you take your entire house and rent it for a week to somebody else, you've rented the entire house, you haven't changed the nature or the use of
The
the
nature of the
house,
use, okay.
which is single family dwelling.
I guess the other question that I wrestle with a little bit is the distinction that we have between the short-term tourist lodging and the bed and breakfast. I mean, have we drawn those lines in the right place? I mean, one's 14 days, one's 30 days, one's 4 rooms, one's 15 rooms, one serves meals, the other one doesn't, but in both cases, the owner has to be there present to manage it. I mean, that all sounds about right, but I'm not the expert in terms of, but does that seem to be, do those lines seem to be drawn in the correct place as far as your information and your discussions with the owners and the like?
I think so, and if we're gonna drop vacation rental, by the way, I was being dense, I was thinking, Tom clarified it for me, but, it really comes down to a principal use versus an accessory use, and how that impacts whatever neighborhood or area that those uses are in. So I think the distinction's fair, and it was based on several discussions and compromise and research on, particularly on behalf of Mr. Billy. So I'm comfortable with the distinction that's been drawn. I guess as a point of clarification, if we drop the vacation rental use, I would say short-term tourist lodging facility, let's just drop the tourist part out of it.
Yeah, they don't have to be tourists.
You're dropping that out of where?
The name of the definition, short-term tourist lodging facility, I would say let's just call it a short-term lodging facility.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
And then you use the term tourist somewhere later. I thought I remember seeing it, but I don't see it all of a
Last
sudden.
bullet.
Yes, the last bullet, correct. And you struck a lot of these bulletized points, and as Jim mentioned earlier, I think maybe, we addressed the issue of inspections and permits and health department and the like outside the ordinance. That doesn't mean they don't get addressed, but it's not inside this proposed amendment.
No, it's not something we have the power to do through zoning, but that's correct.
Also, Josh, you need to drop the tourist at the end of the bullets under the differentiation between a short-term. Drop the tourist there as well.
Under the last bullet.
After the last bullet, the next paragraph, first line. Differentiation between a short-term tourist lodging facility and vacation rental.
Yeah, but that's not, would be not part of the zoning.
But
That's just a part of his memo, I think.
Okay, well,
But in the zoning, the bulletized, at least the one I received, the bullets dealing with inspections and the like were still in there
Yeah,
in the
you
ordinance
got-
language, so they need to.
The last bullet under short-term lodging facility needs to say short-term versus short-term tourist. That's just, all right.
I guess the only thing to reiterate, I advised last time that we consider one more use under special uses in ag zoning, which would be section 70-303, and that would be to accommodate a bed and breakfast inn with a restaurant that's open to the public. So I would advise creating a use under there that would be bed and breakfast inn with public restaurant or restaurant open to the public, or,
With an SUP though?
correct, yes,
So this would be, you said under 7303,
correct.
so this would be added down to, this would be 22 or whatever number is there after you strike out the ones you struck out, or are you adding those? Well, you,
I would, add that into it.
okay.
So what we're saying is,
A bed and breakfast with a public, with a restaurant that is open to the public, is that what you said?
Yeah. And
so a short-term lodging facility with 4 rooms or less becomes a by right.
correct.
But vacation rental does not.
Vacation rental doesn't show up here because it's a, well, yeah, it's a single-family dwelling.
Right, it's a commissioner's interest, not
Commissioner's
a-
issue.
Right.
Okay. What's a private indoor recreational use?
Bowling alley, skating rink, swimming, therapeutic activities,
2 people playing checkers?
or, or other games.
How far do you wanna go with that?
Are you trying to start something?
I'm just asking what we mean by that, private indoor recreational use.
How liberally can it be construed?
And, you know, is that something that we need to, I mean, do we have a definition for it somewhere?
Yeah,
Currently, no, we just say private recreational use is permitted.
but you have a definition in
And that
your
was
proposed
actually one of
change.
the original intentions of this, this amendment, is because we have these uses and we're permitting things under them, but we don't have definitions for them.
Okay,
Terrible
so we
practice.
need to, if we're going to have that as a by right use in agricultural, we need to define it or delete it.
Well, or he's proposed a definition.
He's got the
Bowling,
definition.
skating, swimming, therapeutic, athletic courts,
Any use
paintball.
involving motorized vehicles?
Okay.
This would include model trains?
This does not include facilities offering table games, billiards, having amusement rides, or any use involving motorized vehicles.
And as I said, Josh, in the ordinance language itself, some of those bullets that we struck, I think, are still there. They're dealing with the inspections and the like.
Yeah, I think we kept the first resolution that you were offered as a way to see the changes, so it still reflects the old proposal.
But those would come out based on the letter that you've redlined, right?
Correct.
So that we would say that a paintball or a golf driving range is a permitted, by right permitted use in agricultural areas?
Indoor.
No, just the indoor.
Oh, no, it's both indoor and outdoor.
No, it just says in private recreational, it's indoor and outdoor. Well, it says private indoor
The
here.
driving range is outdoor.
Yeah, okay.
Paintball's both.
I hope so.
It could be an indoor electronic driving range.
You'd wear a helmet and goggles.
Okay.
They have the electronic ones.
Yeah.
All right, so I've got an indoor swimming pool. An indoor shooting range. I'm not sure why a pool table would not be allowed and a shooting range would be.
And if you're going to have
Now, when we say private, we're talking about this is not commercial. People are not renting this out. People aren't paying to play paintball.
No,
These are,
No,
these
these
are
are
for commercial, yeah.
These are commercial.
Yeah.
So I'm going to create an opportunity for by right commercial activities in an agricultural area?
No, I think they should be kept as, got my page numbers messed up.
Yeah, we all reading on the same page here.
Hang on. There we go.
Page 4 of 9, is that where you are?
That's right.
The indoor is a permitted use, the outdoor is a SUP,
Understand.
if I remember right.
But what I'm saying is I've got a situation here where I can have a public, we say private.
Yeah, how can it be public if it's private?
Well-
I'm confused.
I mean, if somebody's got a private shooting range, but I can't have a pool table in my house.
Or a slot car track.
That's because we don't let you have one.
You just can't have one.
NRA is really getting his,
Go to pool table, go to Culpeper. We're old with that kind of stuff around here. What does that mean? I mean, why is that written that way? Under private recreational use indoor, why do we allow shooting ranges but not billiards? I'm not sure what table games means, because that's language that.
got trouble here in River City.
Casinos.
Yeah, gambling.
But billiards, what's the,
I
mean, you know, billiards and then amusement rides and motorized vehicles, I'm not sure what those have in common.
Is a lot of this left over from your predecessor?
No, some of this
Uh,
was.
I'm
still
trying to get at,
other restrictions.
what we're talking about here. If I'm saying that I can have a bowling alley, you know, I mean, the president's got his own private bowling alley, but I don't know very many other people that have private bowling alleys. So, I mean,
To answer, the private recreational use, the use of that word private, it's currently in the ordinance. It was just providing a definition for a use that already exists. I'm not-
Private means, as opposed to public, a park is public, anyone can go in.
uh-huh,
Private, you charge admission, you
Sure.
have limits as to, so basically it's a business use is what you're really kind of talking about in private
and,
recreational.
and do I want to allow a bowling alley in agricultural area by right?
This would be like this would be like a club, essentially, is what
Right.
we're talking about.
No, I'm saying
No,
you could charge it.
I think you could charge, I think a bowling alley,
Well, but it's,
well, that would be open to the public.
Right.
So
But
it would be something that a membership driven,
Right.
you know, like you'd see a lot of places that have a membership driven pool or
Yeah.
a membership driven,
Or like a hunt club?
country club or.
right,
yeah.
something like that would be a private recreational use as opposed to a public use that anybody can go into.
Okay, so that's a legal definition, the difference,
So why would we not allow billiards? I mean,
I'm not tied to that.
I just need to wonder why it's in there.
And when it says
Seems strange.
motorized vehicles, slot car tracks have motorized vehicles on them. They do. Is that or is not the definition? The old racetracks with the motorized vehicle, now they've got the remote control.
robotics.
I'm not trying to, all I'm doing is asking the same question Lee did. Just,
I'm,
If he were to ask a legal opinion as to whether slot cars are a motorized vehicle, the opinion you'd get is no, they weren't.
okay, what about remote control cars?
I would, those are, to me, those are toys, those are not motorized.
How about drones?
Depends on how they're powered.
That's,
I guess if we're talking about somebody having a private swim club in an agricultural, I don't have a problem with that, it's even a by right. But if I'm saying that I'm gonna have a private hunt club or something like that. But if I'm talking about, some of these other areas, if I'm talking about bringing a lot of people in on a commercial activity, I'm not sure that I'm comfortable with that as a by right. Well, I think we got the two definitions settled, but I'm not sure that all the rest of this is.
Lee, I'm trying, it's been so long since this was drafted. If I recall, my train of thought when I put that together was to things that we currently, obviously not the bowling or skating, things that we currently get tourism activity for, I'm thinking of paintball namely, and shooting ranges for that matter. And the planning commission discussed that too, and the idea was that supports our overall goals of county, so they advise keeping that as a by right use.
Which?
Anything indoor recreational, anything that can be conducted
Indoor
recreational-wise.
recreational, as
Inside
if it
the
were
building.
private, that's one thing, but I'm concerned about this definition of private. If I open up a bowling alley and I'm charging for bowling, and maybe I want a beer license, a few other things.
It'd be a membership driven charge.
Right. You
I
wouldn't
could-
be charging for bowling, you'd be charging membership to a club.
Okay, all right.
Is where.
That would be the difference.
And like I said, the
And
private
I've seen that,
ordinance.
and I've seen that abused before too. You know, $2 to enter, that's your membership fee.
A lot of bars do that to get around the cutoff on the drinking time.
Sure.
Like,
Mhm.
you know, after 2, if you pay 50 cents to join our private club, I mean, you can come in.
Tom, does it matter if we drop the word private from, just call
Well-
it recreational use? Because we define it as a commercial operation in the definition. I didn't think it would be.
No, I don't care. I mean,
Well, a property or facility used for commercial sports or amusement operations under the following categories. So do I wanna do that as a by right? When I'm starting to talk about,
Drop the private, I think that gets you farther off.
that's
Yeah, I
right,
was gonna say
being
that.
at least talking.
that's right.
I think, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I think we're saying private, so what we're really talking about is you can have a private club. It's not, you're not gonna be advertising, you know, for people to come and come down and bowl on Saturday night because it's a private club. So it'll just be people coming there who belong to the club, and pay their dues, and
Yeah.
so I don't see that
And
that's
even a private club that serves beer and has a pool table, you know.
or billiard table.
That's
I
no
mean-
different than the old pot and kettle.
I was gonna say, exactly.
What's
Well,
that?
you hope it is a little bit different.
Well, a little bit different. I don't know, pot and kettle was okay.
Well, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, a pool table's got trouble in River City, and we don't want trouble in Orange County.
I guess the
Worst thing
question,
you know, it'll be another horse feather.
Whole terrible place.
if we,
All
if
right.
we mean private club, if we mean to refer this to a private club, should we say instead that, you know, private recreational use or mention private club or mention members or some clarification so that we
And you, instead of
tighten it
using the
down a
word
little bit?
commercial, use private club sports or.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Well, what is the definition for private?
Not public, not.
You gotta go to Tom for that
I'm
one,
not
I
being flippant
think.
for that.
Well, no, I mean, I assume we've got it defined somewhere, don't we?
It really is not public, it's
Right.
limited, it has some sort of a limitation that is not open to the general public.
Not open to the general public would be the, okay.
It would, you know, members or guests of members, it sounds like what we're
I mean,
saying.
a bowling alley that's there for the public, they're gonna want a big sign out by the road saying bowling, you know, Friday and Saturday night, whatever.
Yep,
A private club is gonna have a small sign out by the road saying that's the Dewdrop Inn Club, and that's it. I mean,
Tonight's event is.
well, no, you get that.
it's sort of like
Right, but,
you know,
They don't
American
need to
Legion or-
advertise out by the road, they don't need
Right.
to make a big splash because it's private, it's not something
everybody
where they're trying to reach
knows
the
where the
public.
American Legion is.
I think one of the things is that
Yeah,
they're both commercial activities because there's some exchange of dollars for the recreation. And whether you can come up as a member of the public and get it on demand at that point in time, or you have to, then it's an exclusive thing where you have to have the membership. Now, there's some times people get around that, particularly with alcohol after 2 a.m., where you can buy and join, be part of a club that then serves alcohol.
Well, I'm not sure worried about it, and like we would get a private bowling alley, but the possibility of swimming and maybe even shooting ranges. Paintball, a little tough, you might get that inside, but again, I just don't see that. I see more like billiards in a bar. That's what I see as the private club, where you,
Couple poker tables,
huh?
couple poker tables.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, or a civic organization that has a bingo. Especially if a bingo serves popcorn.
But usually,
I would require that.
Yes.
If you're gonna do bingo, you gotta do popcorn.
I mean, I think
Usually if you're doing your bingo though, you're not holding it to your club members. It's usually, trying to get, not that you couldn't have one that way. I don't have a problem with that.
but we have those, and I'm not sure
Don't
that
exist.
It's always interesting what small things we run afoul of.
I know.
We can decide really big things, but we bulk down on billiard tables.
Chainsaws.
That's right.
Well, at some point, somebody's gonna come in and we buy into this, these definitions here. Somebody's gonna say, well, you mean I can't put a pool table in my basement, And,
Well, again, I don't think this applies to houses.
We just got the word commercial in there to make
right,
sure.
right.
And this, just to reiterate, this doesn't have to be a by right use, we could just keep it in.
Well, I'm concerned about activities that are gonna generate a lot of traffic or potentially generate noise,
Well, you talk about a pool, that's something that's gonna generate some traffic.
yeah, sure,
You know,
yeah.
Particularly if you have swim teams.
Yes.
Look at the country town pool.
Exactly,
That's
yeah.
a perfect example of it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to protect the neighbors, but without necessarily inhibiting.
Can we,
Uh,
can we, can we bring this back to the next work session and, so we can all give this some thought in the meantime?
Yeah, yeah.
And can we adjourn for 3 minutes before the board meeting?
If I
Oh.
could, one other thing back on
Apparently not.
the lodging piece. We had a pretty good discussion this morning about transient occupancy tax and how to get this universe of new ventures that are out there, either through the commercial web or the websites that are there, or ones that are renting their entire house. I know in the eastern part of the county, there's that issue. We started working through a process, at least from the zoning and communicating to the treasurer and the commissioner, that somebody, if they wanted a zoning permit for these type of things, to communicate that. There may also be an enforcement function that this treasurer could undertake by policing the websites. And usually you can figure out a specific property, who owns that property, and give them notice if they're not duly registered. So I want to work with Tom and Josh, but also bring the treasurer. I just saw in our transient occupancy, the commissioner actually is charged with collecting delinquent taxes. There may be some cleanup from 1986 that we need to do on transient occupancy tax too.
I don't mind that.
So
I don't mind
let-
getting
let
all
us
those back
bring-
taxes.
Let's bring this back for some work on the transient occupancy piece as it's related to these four.
Well, I think that, when I saw a lot of these things crossed out, conditioned upon approval of the building official or conditioned upon registration with the county treasurer, obviously this isn't, the zoning ordinance isn't a place for that, but that process needs to occur in some form.
And I'd like the opportunity to work on how we may do this, and certainly
All right.
engaging the constitutional officers.
All right.
We'll stab at it again.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, in about 30 seconds, I had a conversation with Josh, a couple of conversations now about our parking zoning regulations. It seems that we find ourselves in a situation where for many uses, we are requiring way too much parking. And it sort of didn't matter over the years, but now with the new stormwater management and E&S regulations, it's causing some actually backfiring is what it's doing. It's causing some rather major problems. And I'd like to, in a future work session, discuss parking and where that stands and what we need to do about it. There's a church in my district that's trying to do something that they might not even be able to do because our ordinance as it currently stands requires too many parking spaces. They gotta build retention ponds and all sorts of other things, according to the Culpeper people.
Okay.
So it's an issue that needs some attention. And I think Josh has had enough occasions, he agrees that it's an issue that needs some attention.
Okay,
Agreed.
all right.
It's something we generated, not the state.
It's our ordinance,
All
yeah.
Our generation.
Yeah, that, the ordinance determines, how many parking spots you gotta have.
And Josh mentioned this, I'll just add, these parking ordinances, this one reads just like from Vintage, where you really overparked. You had way more parking spaces than needed. As time goes on, it's more people riding in one car, then you don't need as many parking spaces. And now with stormwater, it's a double whammy on.
Well, and the stormwater folks are treating a gravel parking area just like it was paved.
Really?
Yes, it's no longer.
And so
permanent.
all of a sudden, it's counterproductive, and so we need to,
Maybe we ought to work on that
I tried, and I got nowhere
with,
with the guy from Culpeper.
That's DEQ.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said it's,
Eventually, as the gravel gets compacted down, the runoff is essentially the same. It collects pollutants the same way as asphalt does.
but I argued that sometimes grass grows up through it, and then it's just like dirt. So, but I didn't win. So.
That's
All right.
the state at least.
So
Okay.
we'll make note of that, to bring that back at
all right.
future work.
We ready to start the, regular meeting now? All right. Call the meeting to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance this time?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we are meeting today to conduct matters of public business. Guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our efforts may honor you. Thank you for being our source of guidance today. Amen. Okay. We've got a couple of changes to the agenda. There's these, under the 3A Orange Veterans Memorial Committee project presentation, and under 8A, the county administrator's report on Gordonsville Pratt's transmission line rebuild project. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
I guess it would go under 9D, discuss the library board.
Okay. All right.
So moved. As
Do I have a
amended.
second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. First item, the 3A Orange Veterans Memorial Committee, Roberts Sidelko.
Distinguished members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm Mr. Sidelko. I go by Sid. And I represent the Orange Veterans Memorial Committee. I invite you, when you leave this evening, and you walk out the front door of this building, take a gander to the right, to the north, and that monument you see at the end of the, at the corner of Main Street in 15th, Route 15, that monument is the most, one that's most, the permanent marker we have that honors veterans. And that's for the Civil War guys. That monument itself was dedicated in October of 1900, almost 115 years ago. We're due, folks. We need to build another monument to commemorate the sacrifices that our men and women, brothers, fathers, uncles, have provided to our country. A little over a year ago, the town council agreed to allow us to move the playground right along Newton Street to someplace else in Veterans Park. And if the, we gave you pages 2 and 3 there. There's a Google map, and then I did a blow up, use a lot of green ink to give you that portion of Veterans Park. They agreed to move the playground someplace else in Veterans Park and to allow us to build a memorial where the playground currently is. And it's annotated by those little yellow stickies there. On Memorial Day last year, John James, the local landscape architect, did a preliminary drawings for us, which are your last couple of pages there. This is a preliminary concept drawing of perhaps what we can build. Our original goal, and still is, I guess, is we're trying to raise $1 per person for every citizen of Orange. And we have, last census, we had approximately 35,000, so we just rounded it off and made, that's our goal, is for 35,000. Mr. James seemed to think we could build his concept drawing with that amount of money. Ultimately, what we end up building depends on how much money we raise. It's kind of a chicken egg. People want to see a picture before they're willing to give the money, and we don't know what we can build till we see how much money we get. We'd like to delineate, not only will this be a memorial to all veterans, but those specifically that have given the supreme sacrifice and given their life on behalf of our liberty.
Are those from the Orange County then?
Yes, either they were born in Orange County, or they declared Orange was their place of residence while they were in the military. We do have issues with the databases right now. Our main one we're using is the Library of Virginia's database, but it does not concur with, what the American Legion has. Okay, there are differences, and so through the course of the next months here, we have we've talked to the editors from the Orange County Review, the OC Magazine, and Lake Currents. All of them are agreeable to run a series of articles where we're going to start with the American Revolutionary War and go all the way up to the most recent peacetime ones, and give 10, 12 names of those who died in each war. And then if anyone knows of any, I'm a new resident here, okay? I've owned property 15 years here, and I've lived here less than 10, okay? But this is, I believe something needs to be done. So there's a lot of history here, and there's maybe someone knows somebody who should be on there that isn't, or maybe somebody's on there that shouldn't be. So we're hoping through the course of the publications, that that'll be straightened out. Largely, that's my presentation. I'm hoping the town council pass a unanimous resolution to support this endeavor. I hope you gentlemen will also pass a resolution to unanimously support this endeavor. And if you could make some kind of appropriation on behalf of the people of Orange, we'd greatly appreciate it. Currently, we have collected less than $3,000 for our things, but we haven't really had a good media campaign. We had some issues to make sure that we were truly in the tax-free category, because no one wanted to incur the having to pay the income tax on that stuff. So, and again, our ultimate, I firmly believe personally that you properly bury your dead and then you take care of the living. And we're hoping that or anticipate that the working between the business, civil, and veterans organizations, that buildings memorial, that it also foster stronger relationships, which then we can turn into perhaps better veterans programs in the future.
Have you had a chance to talk to the Lake of the Woods Veterans Club yet?
I had, yes and no. The gentleman I was talking to, Ted Ferreter, kind of dropped off the radar on me. I am going on Thursday evening at 7 o'clock to do a presentation again to their organization.
All right, I'll see you then.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
I was just going to say, I know he's done some presentations to the various groups within the chamber as well. So, very, very good.
have you set up a specific organization to receive funds, or are you doing it through the VFW, or what?
Actually, the American Legion
Or the American Legion?
is,
Okay.
using their 501, Sean Gregg is,
Yeah.
is
Okay.
kind of giving my legal top cover. I'm a retired Air Force guy, so, he's my top cover guy for legal, and he discouraged me from trying to set up an independent 501c organization when we started this 2 years ago, and to use somebody else's thing. So the American Legion Post 156 has agreed to, in fact, we're just now to the point where, initially it was just under their general funds. Once we got to $2,500, they're not going to be charged for a checking account, and we get to have our money in our own checking account under their 501c.
But you have, that was really my question, you have,
Okay.
already have an entity. that
There's
can-
been concerns about, race. We have, the Library of Virginia things puts down, if the race is known, we tend to include everybody. There's no limitations here. Probably the only thing we'll see, if the individual died, was killed in action, like up at 18 we have for World War I, only 2 were killed in action. The other 16 died of disease or, from the, when they actually were not killed in action. So we have, if they're killed in action, we like to delineate that they did that. There's maybe just perhaps be an asterisk, on the memorial. Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Yes.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
What's that?
Resolution in this matter we can bring back to.
Do we have a consensus to draft a resolution? Okay.
Bring this back.
We'll have a resolution for our next meeting then. Thank you very much, Sid. Next item is public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Next item is the consent agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Department Director, Constitutional Officer Reports, Park and Recreation Quarterly Report. Mr. Mubray.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight. We have had another successful quarter in Parks and Recreation. On your snapshot that you have, we had some very successful youth programs in gymnastics, wrestling, basketball, and karate. We started a new karate program in Orange Elementary, and it's going very well. Our adult programs, karate, our dodgeball league, and Tai Chi were very successful first quarter as well. Our Tai Chi program is doing very well. We moved it to Dogwood Village, and we pay no rent there, and their clients, their residents and staff get to take it for free. So it's a win-win situation, and we were able to lower the fees a little bit, and our attendance went up, and we're getting their folks involved, so it's a very good thing. The other things on the snapshot I'll touch on in this highlight reel, but one thing I do want to point out is our Regal movie ticket sales are way up again. It said at the time of the printing of the snapshot, last year at that time we had sold 68 and now sold 117. Well, those numbers are 78 and 125 now, so we continue to sell them. We did a Valentine's Day promotion in February, so date night out, and we sold 77 tickets in the month of February. So we got another one coming up, a Mother's Day take mom to dinner to the movies promotion, so we'll see how Mother's Day in May goes. Our highlight reel. Our License to Slide program we do with Massanutten each year. Another big success this year. The program is very good. I think Mr. Goodman took part in it a few times. You get 6 sessions, whether it's lessons, rental, and lift ticket, or any combination of those. If you use all 6 sessions, you get an extra session of skiing and a session of tubing. So it's really 8 things for the price. And with this next slide shows our numbers. All of them are up except for the one slope use and lessons, which you would have your skis and need lessons and ticket, which is not very likely. But overall, we went from 46 to 72, big change in those. Our Orange Wrestling Club was once again very popular. We had 34 kids in the program, ages or grades K through 5. 12 in the kindergarten and first grade group, and 22 in the other group.
That must
There
be
they
fun
are,
to
and there's our
watch.
T-shirt spinning around that we gave each participant, and they really like those. So Coach Mills, he's the gentleman in the back with the mustache and goatee. He's run the program with the other guys for years, but he takes it on. We do the registration, he does everything else. So all volunteer-wise. Our dodgeball league once again was successful. We had 3 teams return from last year, and one was a new one. If you had been there to see it, it's grown-ups playing like kids. They have a good time, and we had some snow interferences this year, but we had to play double headers a couple of nights, and we got it in. Our teams, you'll recognize some of those folks. Heather from the treasurer's office upstairs, Allison right there, and her husband. One of our child care coordinators from Locust Grove. You see the sign, Larry, Mr. Clement from IT had to miss that night, so he didn't get in the picture. And Rose played as well. This is a group from the North Anna Power Plant, and one of those guys is one of the deputies as well. This is a group of our young folks from Orange, deputy on that group as well. So we had a lot of county employees participating. And our defending champs, the Fainting Goats, once again, sponsored by Chestnut Hill. They are the only team in the league with a sponsor, and so it's pretty cool. Barboursville Park. I'm going to put in a plug here for the Central Virginia Regional Jails Workforce Program. They are an amazing help to us. We had the guys up there last week, and they worked on backstop and getting leaves. I'll show you a couple pictures. That's one morning's work. 4 guys getting up leaves off the park. We had back last year some vandalism on the restroom doors, and at the end of last year they came in and sanded them and primed them, and then came back this time and painted them. And this is our backstop. You can see how it was peeled all up at the bottom. Last year they came and secured it, used ratchet straps and pulled it back and secured it back to the upper poles, but the bottom was still curled out. This time they wanted to fix that. That was their priority. Officer Grimes had a suggestion for me to ride up the road and talk to Mr. Lamb. I rode up to Lamb Lumber Company, told him it was for the park. He said, "What size board and how many you need?" So he was very good. He donated 5 3.5 by 6 inch boards, that big, around 16 feet long. So they were pretty heavy. And we came in and the guys measured, cut them off with the chainsaw to the size, tacked it down, and as you can see from the picture on the right, it looks very good now. So we got some good community support up in that area. Our upcoming programs, we have an adult karate program starting at Lightfoot Elementary. Our 50 and Wiser program, there's a wood carving group that we're going to do out of the Barboursville Park, the community room. We have an adult kickball league and our spring gymnastics, and we hope to have a few more to come. We have a basketball clinic coming up as well. And as you'll see from the last slide, our Michael's Mile event, the kids' fun run to benefit Michael's Gift, we just finalized our date. It'll be a Friday night this year at Booster Park, starting at 6 o'clock, May 15th. So we hope to have lots of kids involved in that. And we've also added a parent mile, where the parents can run a mile and have their time added to their child's time for a parent-child combo in each grade. So it can be a mother-son, mother-daughter, father. So trying to add events and get more people involved. And just a quick plug before I'm done. Last Tuesday night, I had the honor of being the guest speaker at the Garvis Huff Awards, their Volunteer and Service Awards. And we have some adults doing some very good things for youth in this county, and some youth doing some very good things for everybody. So it was a very eye-opening experience, and made you appreciate the folks that are here helping us. Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay, next, Old Historic Courthouse.
Seems like when Tim speaks, I always end up behind him. I don't like that. Can we change that?
He does happy and you
Yeah,
do sad.
exactly.
You know, put a smile on your
He
face,
does
it
happy,
might
you need
change.
room prepared.
Right. I have presented a memo. I also have Aaron Kane here, if some questions come up regarding this issue, but, in a nutshell, we found that, we started looking at the courthouse, the historic courthouse, in conjunction with Mr. David's thoughts on, some potential, reuse of that facility. So we've started looking around at some things that need to be addressed, and, the backside of the roof that I, indicated in this memo and the attached pictures, it's kinda out of sight, out of mind, and it's pretty bad.
How bad is the deterioration in the inside?
Inside, some of the wainscoting is, the paint's peeled off of it, some of the plaster on the walls have cracked. It's nothing that can't be repaired, but left unattended, it's going to get worse. I do believe that a majority of the interior, majority of that leaking occurred with these snows and the snow sitting there. I don't think it's leaking quite as bad in a rain event as it is with snow and ice being up there. However, it is still leaking, and certainly needs to be addressed. We have, the estimate that I indicated in my memo is based on a contractor that Aaron was familiar with that does restoration of historical facilities. These folks actually came in and gave an assessment of everything and provided us their estimate of cost. So we didn't pull that number out of thin air. It is based on some pretty reliable estimates.
Kurt, this is an area you can't see from the ground. You have to go up on the roof.
You can see one little corner of it from
Is
the
that
ground,
all-
but
is
the
that
rest
all
of it, yes, sir, you basically have to go up on the roof of the new courthouse and then get on top of the penthouse
Yeah.
to be able to see this.
My concern was, in one of the pictures, you can see what appears to be fairly new flashing that was put up there when they were building, probably when they were building.
Where that new flat
where they
roof
made-
ties in, yes, sir.
And, you know, I mean, restoration is a good thing, but this particular section of the building, given where it is, it seems to me that there needs to be a semi-permanent solution. I don't know exactly what that is, but I'm all for restoration, but given where this is, I think you know, longevity and permanent solution needs to be considered at least. And I don't know how they propose to fix it, but just to go back and put some pine in there and paint it, that doesn't look to me like a solution. I don't know what they're proposing.
Actually, it's more extensive than that. It's in that estimated price that I spoke of in my memo. It's actually rebuilding that entire structure on the back side, and then on the outside trimming it back so that it's of the same look as the courthouse is supposed to be, but from a structural standpoint, all that's gonna be rebuilt. And then with those box gutters, all that's gonna be replaced with new material, appropriate for the look of the courthouse, but it'll be all new functioning roof and gutter and cornice.
Well, I'm concerned even about the flashing. It looks like it's attached to the old brick, if I'm seeing the picture correctly.
And that picture, what you're seeing there is actually the flashing that was installed, and it was cut into the brick. That flat roof section is part of the new courthouse construction that ties into the old. And you're correct. That flashing was installed at the time that the new courthouse was
But it looks like,
built.
unlike the way you're supposed to install
Yeah.
flashing, it was just slapped up there and caulked.
No, it's regular.
Yeah,
You can see it's, what they've done is they've scored back in.
I'm
and
sure they
then
cut
it's-
into the-
And then it's caulked over top, but it's actually
They did.
recessed in.
Is it? Okay, that's what I couldn't
Yeah,
tell.
Because it's
Talking
not,
about-
it's not
talking about this right
counterflash.
here.
I know this stuff.
Yeah.
Why we're listening.
Yeah, that's right. I'm only asking questions. I don't.
Yeah.
And I'm not aware that we found any problem with this section of flashing here, right?
No. Right now it's being, you have a small hyphen that connects the old and new courthouse, and what's happening currently is that all that water from the old courthouse is just coming straight off onto that hyphen, and it's overloading that portion of the roof, but I don't see any evidence that it's failing, and I think any issues with that are gonna be corrected when we repair the
Well, you've
I
got
will-
built-in gutters, right?
Hmm?
It's built-in gutters?
Right, box,
Yes.
yeah, box cutters on.
Okay, yeah, and that's, you're failing at a joint in the,
But
where the gutter ties in the roof.
to address your concern, Mr. White, the firm that came out and looked at this, they have also provided us a price with redoing this this flat roof. We don't feel like it's necessary at this moment. What I stated in the memo is that the remainder of the work that needs to be done on that courthouse, including this hyphen roof, I think it can wait a little while and be tied into the CIP project that Mr. David put forward for the reuse of this historical courthouse. But that roof is, we do have a quote for replacing that roof, including that flashing. It's just not necessary at this moment, and it's not as critical as what you see above it.
Now, that quote is for doing the entire roof?
Just the
Then-
main section of the courthouse, not the
Yeah,
tower and
not the tower, but
Right, not that front porch roof, not the old clerk's office,
But
but,
all four sides of the,
the large
Yes.
section.
yes.
I guess a concern I have is, this needs to be done, but if you stand out in front of the old courthouse, you can see pretty severe deterioration of
On the
the
clock tower.
soffit on the clock tower.
Yes, sir.
Where does that fall in this whole
The-
scenario?
This CIP project, that,
Mr. Crozier, members of the board, if you recall, when we did the the 5-year CIP last fall, I put forward a project with no money, but just the idea of exploring opportunities to reuse the historic courthouse in more of a civic function. And what I think we'll be doing this summer is coming to you all with at least an amount of money from our program development fund in the CIP, just to start getting involved, our arms around what potential reuses, what are some things to be done. Right now, if I understand that the soffit around the clock tower is not in any critical situation.
no, not,
But
Okay,
it
so
would
we don't
be-
have
we
water
prioritize
penetration.
the issues in
Yeah,
into
we're
the
not
tower.
seeing any water damage
Okay.
from the tower.
Yeah, and we're bringing this to you, Dave, because there's a critical nature to get this
Right.
done. The other thing that I would add, and I'll say it now rather than later, is that when we bid this, we'll come back with a sum certain. I would ask you all to, at the same time, adopt a reimbursement resolution, so that if in fact we do finance this through some means, including historic tax credits or whatever, this may be eligible. It's a belt and suspenders approach to this work, but that shouldn't delay this work. We'll find the dollars, most of the dollars are there, and with the finance director's help, we'll be able to get this, and with competitive bids, I think we can get it down to a manageable price.
The one other question I have, on the interior, is that damage all surface damage, or is it through the interior of the wall? And if it is of the interior, is that price figured into the repairs?
The current price from the contractor had in is to repair the damage to the brickwork. What it appears to me, and it appears to the contractors, you probably all know, brick is a porous material, so the water is actually coming through the brick and getting wet behind that wainscoting and plaster.
but
Okay,
to be clear, this price includes no work on the inside.
okay, so if we've got mold or whatever back behind that, that's something we'd have to deal with in
Yes, sir.
addition to it, okay.
One,
The,
I'm sorry.
the roof that they're repairing is basically, it appears to be a gable, just a gable roof.
Yes, sir.
That's what's being
Yes, sir.
repaired. So not the tower and not the front portion
Correct.
that's over the
Correct.
portico.
Correct. And not the roof over the old clerk's office either,
Right.
which all has to be addressed at some point. To give the board an idea, if we were to try to tackle everything that needs to be addressed on the outside as far as the roofs go, I think the total price was about $175,000.
what are you putting on it?
I have some blue tarps.
Well, not blue, not blue.
Green.
They'd have to be beige.
The beige,
Be
okay.
brown.
It's a standing seam metal roof, so I'm trying to look at the trademark one. I believe it's Englert, I don't know if you're familiar with that. And then.
24 gauge Kynar or copper.
Not copper.
Not copper, no, it's a stainless steel gutter, that's able to be soldered, so there'd be less seams, and there'd be.
So you're doing stainless on the roof then?
No, not stainless, it's, I think it's a trademark material. It says Engler 24 gauge pre-enamel. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, that's just painted 24 gauge.
Okay. And then with stainless steel, so it can be soldered and, less failure.
Thanks to have our own
Oh,
experts.
gutters.
Yeah,
The
it
gutters
does,
is
it
next.
makes a
Right.
difference.
All right. Any further questions for, I would entertain a motion?
Make one more
Sure.
comment quick. I would think you should consider, given this, where this area is and the fact that it's not gonna get regular attention, I'm certain of that, considering the materials that they're using to replace, whether it's some of the new materials that are man-made materials, hardy plank, whatever. I mean, I don't have a specific suggestion, but like I said, putting back pine and painting it we'll be revisiting this before we know it. So even if you solve the roof and guttering problem, because snow and things, it's going to lay against this area. There's no question about it. So I don't know what they bid, but you might want to think a little bit about what materials they're using.
Okay.
You
If
could
we
do
tr-
al-
if we-
you could do alternates, right? Some of this material.
Yeah, I'm sure we can from a construction standpoint. I guess we need to be careful about what's appropriate for that particular
Agreed.
structure, and it doesn't jeopardize anything that we're looking to do down the road. So I understand completely.
Well,
Mr. White, what
the
you're
freeze
saying.
board particularly through there, that thing, it concerns me just to look at it.
We just need to do a little research and make sure that it doesn't
And
jeopardize.
because it's
It
not
definitely needs
visible.
sanding and paint.
I'd say.
Well, it looks like it's
Yeah,
sanded
if-
pretty
if-
hard.
If I understand what you're saying, Jim, you'd like to find out about something that's
A little less
not going to be
maintenance.
so maintenance intensive.
Right,
Sure.
PVC or something on that
Yeah.
backside.
Yeah, and
And
given
if
where
we
this is,
sacrifice a little historical,
only in this area, because
Right,
if you look back at that first picture, put yourself anywhere and you're not gonna see this unless you're up on the roof.
You're right. Appreciate it.
Well, they also, I think there are ways of doing things so that they are historically, if not accurate, at least acceptable, but using.
Sure.
Right.
And that's the balance, I think, that I think I'm only suggesting.
Okay.
Sorry, I just.
all right, any other discussion or questions? Could I entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and seconded. Any further discussion?
The only thing, I'd like to make sure that we address that interior sooner than later as far as any moisture content in there. Because what will happen is the damage will grow exponentially if we do have mold in there.
Is that masonry behind this, the picture of the interior, behind the wainscoting and the plaster is a masonry wall?
Plaster on the wall.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
so,
in that brick.
exactly.
So
So-
as soon as
Going green
we
is
are
not
sure
good.
that we have stopped the penetration of moisture, then we will move towards,
Right, just sooner than later.
yes, sir.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
I'll be able to look at that tomorrow.
Okay.
Good idea.
Well, we
Committee
have-
of one.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's what I do for a
Yeah,
living,
sure,
so.
Sure,
That's
yeah,
right.
we were just commenting to Jim that we've got our own expertise on the board. Okay,
We got roofing and then we got remediation.
Yep, so.
Next item, county attorney's report. Next item is county administrator's report.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I had one late item that you added to the agenda. As you know from an email I sent on Friday, Dominion Power, Rappahannock Electric Cooperative, and First Energy, which was formerly Potomac Edison Utility Allegheny Power, are doing a rebuild of a transmission project between Dominion's Gordonsville substation to a substation in Madison County outside of the town of Madison called the Pratt's Substation. This is rebuilding this line from 115 kV kilovolt line, wooden pole structure, to new steel or metal poles capable of supporting a 230 kV structure. As I understand it, the only elements is the height will still be the same. Some of the wooden H structures are now guy wired. This would not require such supporting guy wires. This project is part of a larger project to bring a redundancy to the Pratt substation at Rappahannock Electric. Right now, as you know, with water transmission, you want to get a looped system. This Pratt substation is on a cul-de-sac. It's not hooked to anything. And so given the potential growth of the customer base, and I think it's 25,000, I think is where I saw the numbers that are served out of this substation are going to be part of another project that's going to potentially involve the Rapidan area of Orange County or southern Culpeper. They are having an open house at Gordonsville Fire Department on Wednesday, April 1st from 5 to 8. First Energy will have representatives as long as Rappahannock Electric Co-op. We will post this notice, this letter that I have on our website, as well as there's a map generally showing the alignment for that. And I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. We will also, there is another project, as I said, in the northern part of the county, potentially in the northern part of the county, involving this same substation in Madison, making arrangements for Dominion Power to come make a presentation to you all at the last meeting in April, your second meeting in April. That is a new build. This is rebuilding an existing power line that is potentially a new build, and I had exchange of emails with Susan King, representative of Dominion Power, who will be coming to brief you all on that project. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Brian on this? Okay. Next item on the agenda is new business, award a contract for fire uniforms. Stephanie?
Good evening, gentlemen. Early last month, I released a solicitation for fire EMS uniforms. This includes products such as their boots, shirts, coats, hats, beanies, belts, all of those things, including embroidery and alterations. We received 5 responses, and the Whitmer Public Safety Group is the apparent low bidder for all products, and we are asking for your permission to enter into a contract with Whitmer for those products.
I was just sort of looking at the prices down there.
Mm-hmm.
What was the specific that led to this contractor?
They were able to supply everything we asked. The other folks would either bid on just shirts or just boots, or this company that was second lowest was out of Alabama, so they couldn't necessarily come and fit our folks and turn things around in the timeline that we needed.
Okay, all right.
This company's out of Richmond.
All right. Any further questions? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion. Do you have a second?
Second.
And I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Next items. Contract for Sheriff's Office wireless microphones.
Last month, I also released a solicitation for wireless microphones for the Sheriff's Office. This is part of our ongoing communications project to try to get the Sheriff's Office folks better communication and reception. We released a solicitation throughout the state and particularly targeted Motorola vendors because that's who supplies the product. Only one chose to respond. They're a little territorial. And so we're asking to enter into a contract with communication specialists.
Okay.
It also includes the installation.
If I could, I know Chief Deputy Cass is here. He's been working very hard on this project. As you know, we were having a lot of troubles with in-building reception, particularly in the Route 3 corridor area, which then led us down the road of looking at tweaking our public safety communication system. And as an interim solution before we work on the larger system, and I don't want over-represent or these wireless mics will solve, if you share with the board what this does for you all, particularly in building service, where you didn't have in schools as well. I think there were some issues with schools.
Yes, sir. So essentially, one of the big challenges that we have radio-wise
is portable radios are 5 watts worth of power, and we have a single tower that sits up on Clark Mountain. And so geography plays a big problem along with trees and leaves and other things of stopping the RF frequencies when they go from one place to another. This particular product connects by a 2.4 gigahertz connection. It's a wireless microphone that's worn by the officer on their uniform, preferably in a place where the antenna can get back to the car. And instead of using a 5-watt portable, we're using the 40-watt mobile radio to transmit back to dispatch. And so what this enables us to do is, we've tested this. We bought one and installed it with the booster on it and put the high gain antenna on the vehicle. All the areas on Route 3 corridor, we had no portable coverage. We now have portable coverage as long as we're within between 1,000 and 2,000 feet of our car. And we went to, when we tested this with Walmart, of course our portables have almost no coverage inside buildings. Schools, Walmart, we had nothing. Once you could even with the old portables be on the other side of Walmart, where Walmart was between you and the building and you could not get back to dispatch. But you could with a mobile radio because it's 40 watts of power and somehow it manages to defeat it. I'm not a radio expert. What this product allowed us to do when we added it was to park a police car in the 4th row of the citizen parking area at Walmart, and we could then cross all the way to the sporting goods area and we could still communicate with dispatch with just a little bit of static. These particular mics also include the emergency button, so when our officers are in trouble, that is a feature of the portables, but it only works when the portables work, which isn't in many places. So what this does is it gives us the emergency button. Of course, we have to look within a 2,000-foot range around the car because it's using the mobile radio as the point of contact. But it gives them the ability to say, I need help, hurry up and come, and still have coverage both inside the schools and at Walmart. So this would be a big gain for us. What it does for us is it allows us not to make extra digitalized sections of the towers. So for example, Fire Rescue has 3 towers, LOW, Clark, and Gibson. We only have Clark on the digital standpoint from the Sheriff's Office. So instead of digitalizing the other 2 towers, which are gonna cost us a significant amount of money each, this allows us to use the mobile radios with their 40-watt capacity. We don't have to build the extra towers right now. We can then make this work until we get to a point where we're able to do something with the radio system itself.
How much of a job is it to integrate it into the mobile radio?
For us, it's an install. We have to install another antenna. There's an inline booster that goes between, and it actually plugs into our radios, into the back of our current radios. The problem we had with Fire Rescue is the radios are so old, these mics wouldn't work with them. There were no pigtails to connect the parts that we needed connected. So it doesn't work for them and it's not a solution for them. But our radios are fairly new. And so it does work for us. It just costs, of course, it's the cost of the boosters as you see in the contract, the antenna, and then an installation. There's a little more configuring of the software for our radio, but they're able to do all of that work, and that's what the price includes. Yep. The other feature this radio does give us too, so right now, if we have a unit in a vehicle, they have their one piece, we can actually pair these up as well. So if we end up with 2 guys riding in a car, they can pair both wireless microphones with the car radio, and we can work a 2-man unit if we have to, if that's what we're doing at the time.
So so when you go on shift, then you have to make sure that your portable is linked to that particular vehicle?
Yeah, once you pair it to that vehicle, so if we were gonna do some type of special enforcement, and instead of using 2 cars, we used 1, the officer from 1 car would leave his car behind, carry his portable microphone, he would sync it with the car he's gonna be in using the cradle. Once it syncs.
Is that much of a problem to do that?
No, sir. And then once they're both synced, then they both can use that mobile radio at will. So if they both run to a particular call or whatever, they can use it.
Can they talk to each other then with that as well?
Yes, sir.
And this contract or the bid is for all deputies, it looks like, is it, or nearly all, 44 deputies, is that correct? 44 units?
It's for all our vehicles that we use for enforcement purposes, yes, sir.
All right. Any further questions?
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second?
I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for explaining it.
Yes, sir, you're
I
Oh,
wish it could have been a little more detailed, though.
That was a good explanation. All right. Item 9C, acceptance of planning grant from the Governor's Agricultural and Forestry Industries Development Fund.
Evening, Chairman,
Hi.
Board of Supervisors. A couple months ago, I approached you all to get permission to pursue the Agricultural, Forestry, Industrial Development Grant through the Virginia Department of Ag and Consumer Services. And you all received in your memo some paperwork, and you should have seen there a press release, and through past correspondence, we were fortunate enough to be awarded the grant. So I'm here in front of you today to go through the steps to take the next process here procedurally to approve the funding and Brian's signature on certain paperwork. But just as a reminder, what this APHID grant is for is an assessment that's going to be done through the help from the Virginia Tech Office of Economic Development, assessing agriculture and agritourism related opportunities for Montpelier. We have representatives with both Virginia Tech here, Sarah Lionhill, thank you, as well as Dr. Sean O'Brien, Chief Operation Officer with Montpelier. And actually, Sean would like to come up and just invite you up here. You said you had a few words.
Thank you, Tommy. Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, thank you for supporting this really, I think, a great effort. We're so excited at Montpelier to be partnering with the county on this project. I think it's going to really benefit not just this end of the county, but the whole county, because Montpelier as a tourism draw for the area and the relationships we have with the bed and breakfasts and other organizations in the county, I think that this is really going to set a new tone and a new standard for the kinds of partnerships that organizations like ours can have with the county. And I really want to commend Brian David and Tommy Miller for the work that they've done and the outreach that they've done to Montpelier in their tenure with the county. It's really been a wonderful time for us, and we're just really excited to get moving. Sarah and Scott Tate from Virginia Tech are going to be awesome partners for us, and I think we're all going to be really excited to see what comes out at the other end.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Again, the memo is provided to you. I'll just read over these, some of the actions that need to take course. First is approve and authorize a county administrator's signature on the VDAC's Memorandum of Agreement for the Governor's APHID grant. Need to accept and appropriate Montpelier's cash contribution of $7,500 towards the APHID grant. Again, part of the grant is there is a matching requirement. Authorize a county administrator's signature to appropriate matching funds of $2,500 to receive grant funding. Approve Virginia Tech scope of work, deliverables, budget, schedule, and timeline for its assessment. Authorize a county administrator's signature to appropriate funding for the study conducted by Virginia Tech's Office of Economic Development. And approve the grouping work created to participate in the study conducted by Virginia Tech.
If I could, Tommy, there are two amendments to this action before you. One, obviously, given the time of when Virginia Tech did their schedule and the timeline for doing this, we've slipped a little bit because of the states slowing down. We were ready to go, they slowed down. There will be an amendment to that. We're kind of shifting everything a couple months out. We've contacted all of the working group folks. So one of the things can all happen with these type of processes. Some people may not be able to make or may have had intervening since the time they said they could and they can't. So if you all's permission, we can make substitutions from that list if we have to without having coming back to you all. Mr. Johnson and Mr. Goodwin are on there, so we'll certainly, I'll get their okay before making such substitutions.
One question, what's the in-kind contribution?
Ours is, the in-kind will be resource time, use of space for meetings,
It'll be everybody on county staff's time that'll be putting towards this.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion,
Second.
and I have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Next item, Library Board, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, we've, as we're all aware, for several months, we've had a real problem finding folks to serve on the library board. And so I was gonna propose that we consider reducing the library board to 5 members from its current 10. We did this with planning commission a few years back. Seems to be working well. And the idea has been to reduce it back. Instead of 2 per district, there would be 5. There would be 1 per district, and then an at-large position.
So 6 total.
So 6 total, yeah. And probably the fairest way to do the at-large is to rotate it through the county. And so I would suggest we do it in reverse order of the numerical number. So we would start with number 5 and work backwards to number 1.
Particularly since he's got 2.
That's it.
That gives you a few years to get through.
Yes, right. So
What are the-
I'm not sure what
What are the current terms of the library board?
Should be 4 years.
They're 4 years.
4 years? Do the at-large be at 4 as well?
That's probably for the board.
I would say that would sort of follow, wouldn't it? If you
Okay,
appoint
that's fine,
someone that it would
that's
be-
fine. It takes a few years to get rotated through
Well,
5 districts, but.
Again, one of the problems we're having is finding people to serve.
Well, and the other element is because.
Gives the guy who's up next 4 years to figure it out.
Well,
Right.
plus it's also, gives somebody more than 1 year, rotation on it,
Yeah.
having been sat on a board for 1 year and not.
Yeah, it's not much chance to accomplish.
That's
much,
right,
yeah.
okay. All right,
Do you have a proposal as to how to implement this in terms of, given the existing terms? And, I mean, we're not trying to overlap them as with the planning commission with board terms and any of that, I take it, at this point.
I don't see any point in doing that.
Yeah,
I
It's
don't
not-
see any point in doing it with the planning commission, but nobody asked me, but.
But it was done. so.
Yeah, it was done. No, I would just think whenever we get our house in order to do it, we just
Yeah.
start at that time.
Okay.
do we need any kind of a public hearing or any other?
I don't believe so. The way the code is at least 5, I think is the way the code.
If you want, I would draft up a suggested way to go about it.
Okay.
All right, okay.
And bring that back. And if I do my math, that would be 5, District 5, and District 1 would be 20 years by the time we can alternate.
That gives him plenty of time.
16.
16.
Because you have to serve the last 4.
Okay.
Math is tough.
All right. Okay, any old business? None listed here. Any board comment? Okay, no board comment. Informational items. I have a comment on the CSA report. If you look at the CSA report, the only item, I mean, overall, we're projected to be under budget. The one area that we're expected to be over budget, actually by a rather considerable amount, is the special ed private day placement. And if you look down at the bottom of that first page there, you'll see last year we had upwards of 3 in special ed, and and currently we're looking at 12. And if you look on the next page, you see that the private day school for these placements can run $50,000 to $80,000 a year. So I talked to Letitia and said, you know, what is it that's causing this? And apparently, the school system, special education director, they have a panel that looks at this and says, okay, this person needs to go to private placement. And they're also, though, they're looking at the possibility of a separate classroom so they can do more of this in-house with our own staff. I'm not sure we need to, I would like to know more about what the transition is here, is what the school is doing to pick up some of this in-house. I know they had talked about it somewhat during the budget thing, but I'd like to know a little bit more detail about it, because we're paying 40% of this cost, and it's a big jump. And although, you know, in terms of the overall CSA, it's not, we're okay, but I just want to see if there's something that's going to try to alter that thing. I mean, we've got autistic kids that you know, go to a special school, and it's not cheap. So if there's some of this that can be done in-house, or if the school plans to do that, I'd like to just talk to them and see what's going on.
Well, especially with the numbers, I mean, when you're only talking about 2 or 3 children, you can't have a program for 2 or 3 children, but at a dozen or more.
Well, but so much of these require individual attention, so even if you got 12, I may need 12 instructors. I mean, you know, I don't know what all this entails in terms of that, but I would just like to know a little bit more about it.
Definitely be nice to have more
Mr. Chairman,
information on
member of the
that.
board, I can get with Ms. Vines and have her make a presentation under Department reports at the next meeting about.
Well, I suspect we need to have
Somebody
from the school system,
Would you like that as well?
to let us know what they are doing, because I think they are doing things to try to help us cost-wise as well, but I'd just like to understand that.
We can do that.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else on the informational items? Okay. We have appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. I would like to nominate Sergey Organovich to serve another term on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and Wally Roshheim to serve another term on the Library Board. Bud Moody to serve another term on the Emergency Medical Services Council.
Say, on the library board, in District 4, John Fry is more than willing to continue it when this term expires and do the
Okay.
next term as well.
All right. Any other appointments?
The Health Center Commission, is Tom Chalista willing to serve again, or what's the situation?
That would be the question on several of these people.
Yeah.
Do we know if they're willing to serve?
I don't believe we've outreached. We can, a number of these are coming up at the end of the fiscal year on June 30th. Why don't we work towards making contact with everybody that's in those categories? And,
Your name's on there.
yeah, we have one that's here. Does he want to continue to serve?
You would be the lodging committee for the tourism advisory.
Let me think of that. No.
I think we dump that on Lee Moyer to figure out who's gonna, wants to continue.
Yes, sir.
Why don't we make a concerted effort and come back to you after we've contacted most of these that are running through June 30th. I'll let you know the status.
I got a note here from Dudley Patty that Grover Wilson would like to serve another term.
Would be wonderful.
Okay, I will make that nomination as well.
And that was the Rapid Hand Service.
For RSA, yeah. Any others? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. All right, next item is the calendar. Any questions or comments about the calendar? What-
The tower side.
Understand, Mr. Flashney had something on the tower site public hearing.
Yeah, the tower site, Mr. Frederick came and talked to me today, and there was a requirement that wasn't met on the application process. And so Josh is gonna contact them, and so we need to defer setting this public hearing on the tower while Josh connects with them and gets the rest of the data that's necessary pursuant to our ordinance. We actually have an ordinance requirement that they have to have filed a certain report, which they didn't.
Any other questions or comments?
We're also working through, there was an issue with lighting of the tower. I think there's things that.
Yeah, I've asked Brian for some help in getting some answers on some of the things that came out of the planning commission meeting. There's an issue, the tower is adjacent to a landing zone, so it's.
The fire department's actually asked for a light on it, and
The action, the planning commission action included the lighting, if I read it correctly. Okay.
right.
There's still some, I guess, loose ends that have to be wrapped up.
Well, one of the options for you would be to kick it back to the planning commission too, and say, so we get this extra information, that instead of deferring it, I mean, you could kick it back.
Could we go with another option?
Yeah,
I really
I don't
wouldn't.
think we need to go back to planning.
Well, I'm just saying it's an option for you, but yeah, at this point, you really need to defer it, and at least into May, I'm thinking, you think you have that report, when do you think you'll have that information?
Given the district it's in, it could take up to 6 months. It'll be a lengthy process, though.
So maybe defer it out 60 days, put it back on the calendar 60 days from now, and you'll have to defer it again. If you defer it indefinitely, it has the effect of removing it.
Right, you need to defer to a date, sir, to a meeting.
And the problem, Tom, as I understand it, is because this is an ordinance, if we were to not do this, then we'd be opening ourselves up to legal action.
That would be my concern, is
Someone
because our
goes-
ordinance does require this 106 information. By not getting it, if somebody wanted to challenge the site, and it was a little bit controversial with the planning commission.
Yeah, I think deferring it, whatever period of time seems, 60 days sounds good. I can't believe the state is gonna come back any sooner than that.
Yeah.
We'll defer this to the second meeting in May, which would be about 60 days.
And then if it isn't ready, then we just have to defer it.
Mr. Chairman, I will not be here on the 31st of March for that meeting. I'm going to be away, so just happened to work out that way.
We have 2 other items that need to be scheduled.
Okay.
And we're ready to go on those?
All right, schedule the
Oh, I can look at my own.
public hearing for the text amendments.
I believe we are, aren't we, Mr. Frederick?
The variances and the nonconformities.
Yes, we're ready for those.
Do we need a motion or just, okay, I move we schedule those 2 public hearings.
Second.
Third.
All right, all in favor of the schedule for the text amendments?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. All right,
All right, well, whereas the Board of Supervisors of Orange County desires to discuss in closed meeting the following: discussion or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purpose or the disposition of publicly held real property, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body. Consultation with legal counsel pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body. And consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. And whereas pursuant to sections 2.2, 3711A3, and A7 of the Code of Virginia, such discussions may occur in closed meeting. Now therefore be resolved on the 24th day of March 2015 that the Orange County Board of Supervisors hereby authorize discussion of the aforesaid matters in closed meeting.
Have that motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Put that in your desk over there.
Huh?
That's a nice black
Sure.
pen.
Members of the board, to the best of your knowledge, were the only matters discussed in the closed meeting, public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements, and that only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. Mr. Crozier,
Aye.
Mr. Frame,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. White,
Aye.
Mr. Goodwin,
Aye.
5-0.
Okay. Next item of business is the public hearing on an ordinance vacating a certain portion of Somerset Road.
Mr. Chairman, if you'll recall, I brought this to a work session before you to give you an overview of a particular action needed by the board to vacate a portion of Somerville Road that goes through the Wilderness Shores subdivision. As I stated at that time, in order to complete this request by the applicant, which is Tricord Corporation, we actually have to hold a public hearing. It has to be by way of an ordinance by the board in order to vacate that easement. And just to reiterate what we discussed previously, back in the 20s, before this parcel was subdivided, Somerville Road was encased within a right-of-way easement dedicated to public travel. And as the parcels became subdivided, as time went on, this right-of-way was never vacated, so it's still thus a valid right-of-way. So the applicant has requested that the board vacate the portion that runs through the property in order to clean up their plats and let them proceed with developing some lots. And just to be clear, this won't change access on either end of the property for external property owners. It's merely just a bit of a cleanup on previous recorded documents. Staff has no problem with this request.
Okay. Is there a representative of the applicant who would like to speak?
I believe we have a few that are willing to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors, my name is Craig Jones. I'm one of the principals at Tricord. We're here this evening to answer any questions about this request. If you have any, I think Josh did a great job of kind of introducing the topic. And I have with me our planning director, Tim Hall, and also our staff attorney, Dave Laws. As Josh adequately pointed out, we're not trying to impede or prohibit anybody from having access across our property. We've simply trying to clean up some things that have been done in the past, starting back in the 1920s and 1960s, where two road systems were kind of created over the top of one another. And we acquired the property. We met with the county staff, the planning staff, and agreed to dedicate roads, wider roads than what the easement is, 50-foot wide roads, dedicate them to public ownership and have them taken into the state maintenance system. And we're beginning the process, we're beginning the process of having some of the roads taken into the state maintenance system, and the highway department requires that the easement road be vacated so that they have an intact road system that makes sense for their processes.
Okay.
I can make lots of other comment if necessary, but I'll keep it brief and be available to answer questions if you have any.
Does anybody have questions for the?
At this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we will open the public hearing. You have any speakers?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Public hearing's closed.
Mr. Jones, a couple of questions for you, if you could come back. Sure. Sorry to make you run back and forth.
No problem.
you don't have any intention of ever cutting off the two ends so that.
Absolutely not.
On the existing, or what would be the remaining parts of the road, it's your intention that they would always have use of the roads within Wilderness Shores to make their way through if that was what they chose to do.
That's correct. When the road system is built within Wilderness Shores, it would be a safer and better road system to cross our property on asphalt paved roads that are maintained by the highway department, as opposed to what's there now is at best a glorified trail, logging road. So, the point of access to the property, to our property, and leaving our property would remain unchanged. We would just have a better road system that we really don't even have to go, time-wise, it would be faster to cross the property on a paved road. Distance-wise, it'd be almost the same.
What point are you at as far as converting these two VDOT roads? Where are you in that process?
We're in the process of building homes on the roads. Our normal practice is to get all the homes built so that the concrete trucks, the drywall trucks, the lumber trucks that do damage to the roads, that damage is done on a base course of asphalt. And then when the construction of the homes is done, we would come in and clean up any erosion into the roadside ditches, clean anything out of the culvert pipes, put a final course of asphalt down so that the roads that are delivered to the VDOT system and to the homeowners are nice, pretty, fresh, A1 quality roads.
Do you have a time period that you envision the project being complete to actually incorporate these roads into the highway
Well,
system?
that will go section by section. I think we've developed
Just a
about
guesstimate is
4 sections out there out of, I think, 17 sections. There's probably 5 out of 17 sections that have been developed, 5 or 6. So it will be a number of years. I think all total in Wilderness Shores, out of the original 1,000 lots, there's probably about 300 or 350 homes that have been constructed. So it's years to come. But this portion of the subdivision, we have built in 2 phases. The sections of the subdivision that encompass the portion of Somerset Road that's being vacated. And I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, it's really market driven, market dependent, but as the houses are finished along those roads, we'll begin taking those roads into the state system. Some of the main parts of the road sooner than some of the cul-de-sacs and the less traveled portions of the road.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I did have a question. The 2 sections of Somerville Road where you've built a stub to enter, the one up in, let me see which way is north, looks like the northern portion going into the golf course and so forth. I understand that, and I saw the connection and everything. My question is about the one to the south of that. I can't read the lot number on the map I have in front of me, so I can't help you.
I think it's adjacent probably to like lot 19.
Yeah, my question is, what are your plans there? That this plat shows that, I think that's Wilderness Way, that there's another stub going in there, but as I recall, that's basically closed off. Somerville Road is closed off by another property owner at that point. Will that be a stub? Will that be opened, or what do you think will happen there? I mean, I know you probably can't predict at this point because you actually don't own the piece of Somerville coming through there, but.
It's out of our control. It would be controlled by development processes. It would have to be approved by the planning department and the planning commission. That stub road provides legal access. We've actually dedicated to the edge of our property a public ownership of that.
So you have, I wasn't sure, I knew you'd had it on the northern side, but I couldn't remember.
We built it to a gravel road surface condition, but it can't go in the state maintenance system until somebody extends it on to the adjoining property. They'd have to build a cul-de-sac, would have to be a certain amount of commercial space constructed or number of residential houses, depending on I don't know if the property's, what it's zoned, if it's commercial or residential.
So that just stays as a stub, a gravelled stub, until something else beyond your control happens.
That's right. Okay. It's very common as we develop properties that we build roads within our property, but then stub a road to an adjoining property owner's land so that they could continue the road system on into their property. They have legal access. Right now, their only access, I think, would be on the other side of the property, but this provides them a 50-foot wide, publicly dedicated means of connection to their property if they would choose to extend that at some time.
And from the appearance of things, at least today, they're not interested in accessing it that way. They want it to go the other way, apparently.
They've got stuff piled up.
Yeah, I mean, they've essentially closed it off.
Yes, the three homes that are served along that portion of Somerset Road, for all intents and purposes, has been closed off because of a dispute between people at both sides of our property. We've stayed out of that, but one of the adjacent property owners put some logs over the property years ago. So we're talking about a road here that, as far as we know, has not been traveled, at least that portion of it, in many, many years. The portion of the easement that traverses our property gets four-wheeler and nuisance type activity on it that the residents in the neighborhood would like to have eliminated. That's one of the reasons that we're asking to have it vacated, so that we can completely block it off and have people drive across the property from point A to point B on the publicly dedicated, we're maintaining it now, but it will be VDOT maintained. It's bonded, guaranteed to the county that it will be taken into the state maintenance system.
And I think that's a key point, that it is bonded to assure that it does go into the state system, so.
Any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion.
Can I get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion. yes.
Okay.
That a ordinance be adopted vacating a certain portion of Somerset Road, also known as Somerville Road, within the Wilderness Shores subdivision, part of the Gordon Magisterial District, all 4 pages to be included.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Okay.
And so moved.
Second it. Oh, we got it.
No, it says budget work session, such as the topic, and he gave us a note here that we have to at least read.
Right. Let me,
I read it, then I made a motion.
well, Ms. Bradley spent 15 hours on this, no.
Now I feel terrible.
She wants to be heard, I think. I get that impression.
To hear. Just, you all have your public hearing scheduled for next Tuesday at 7
Yes.
PM in this room. We're working through, we're kind of in I guess, a holding pattern right now. Let her walk you through what we've done, because there are a couple things that we're working for the Tuesday after you all's public hearing on getting the board
Okay.
in a position to look at adopting the budget and tax rates and such.
There have just been a few things that have happened since the budget was presented with the county administrator's recommendation. And we wanted to bring you up to date on that. One of those things is that the General Assembly did complete a budget, and it included funds for a 2% wage adjustment for constitutional officers and their staffs to be effective in September. So the comp board has now released their estimates on what that will do for our reimbursements. And it basically provides another $17,485 in revenue. There is an expense to us. We had already included the constitutional officer staffs in the wage adjustments that we proposed earlier, so it doesn't affect that. But for the constitutional officers themselves, we've now included the 9 months of the 2%. In addition to that, we are thinking at this point that the Central Virginia Regional Jail budget might be amended to a number that's just $35,000 over the FY15 operational contribution. The Finance Committee for the jail is supposed to meet on April the 9th, and so we won't know until then for sure that is what will happen. But that would be a potential savings for us of $291,000 that would then be available for other purposes for appropriation.
If I could, just on that point, I've had conversations with Mr. Johnson and Sheriff Amos, and I think there's, Fluvanna has replaced their citizen appointee with the county administrator, Mr. Nichols, who I spoke with this afternoon. They have budgeted in their budget the finance committee's recommended number. So if for some reason that doesn't happen either on the at the meeting on the 9th or sometime thereafter, he's made some contingencies out of some reserve funds to make up that difference. But I think there's certainly a confidence level that the finance committee budget will be put up for a vote at the 9th meeting. If it does pass, then this 35,000 reflects that. And I wanted, we have other alternatives to make up that 291 in the event we just need to have a placeholder show that we've got the money budgeted. But at this point, I'm comfortable enough with putting in that 35.
Okay.
I've also made one small adjustment to add the match for the Arts Center grant for $4,500. And on the school's funding, Matt has been working with the school board. They are expecting additional revenue of $243,355.
Is that a net of beyond what they had in their budget?
Yes.
So that's an absolute increase?
Absolute new money from
Okay.
the state. Part of it is dedicated for at least a 1.5% increase for their SOQs. So if they weren't able to reach that and provide that, then a lot of this money would not come from the state. But at this point, it looks like they may be able to do it. I did not show the 243 on the budget balancer in any way, but it is there on the third page at the bottom of the school sheet, just so you'll have the numbers within easy reach. And we are, we've had some conversations with the finance director and the school superintendent, and we're sort of expecting to get some feedback from them on how much additional local money it might take to make sure that they are able to meet the match requirement for the state funds. And we may have that by next Tuesday, or it could be, by the budget adoption. We should definitely know what they request as far as amending the budget to reflect those additional funds.
And the other, Dr. Tanner and I are scheduling to meet on Friday, so to start kind of, I guess, just triangulate it in. The other thing is that, there were a number of other projects probably totaling less than $100,000, I think, for like the school stipend money. There's some hardware and software. Board may want to consider, they're going to work on it on the carry forward funds, the unexpended balance that comes forward, which can be a considerable amount of dollars, that there may be some opportunity to target use some of those funds to take care of those smaller amount projects.
Yeah, there was a governor's school and dual enrollment and a few things like that.
Things like that. So, they're going to be projecting in what their end of year unexpended balance will be. And so I think we're guardedly optimistic there's a path forward here for this year's budget that can come close to meeting everybody's expectations. And that's all we have.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Any questions for Glenda or Brian? Okay, for the work.
Keep finding money.
That's right, just keep it up.
Going in the right direction.
Okay.
It's on Mr. Johnson's shoulders.
I will entertain another motion.
So moved. To adjourn.